Hello, and welcome to today's Future webinar on Is an Apprenticeship Right for Me, hosted by Prospects. I am your host today, Sophia Tang, and this afternoon our panel is going to answer some pre-prepared questions around apprenticeships. At the end of the webinar, we will have some time for a live Q&A, so if you have any questions throughout the session, please pop them into the Q&A box. But let's get started by meeting our panel today. If you could each briefly introduce yourselves, starting off with Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm a development coach for a company called Apprentify, and I specialise in creative and digital apprenticeships, helping all of my learners work through their programmes towards their endpoint assessment.
Hi everyone, I'm Emilia. I am a project management degree apprentice at Jisc, and I've been doing it for 2 years now.
Hi everyone, my name's Kerrie Hughes. I'm a talent acquisition partner at Bakkavor, part of Greencore Group. I've been with the business for about 2.5 years. I've been working in early careers for about 8 years, and I help people join apprenticeships, graduate programs, and placements, and help sort of either start or launch careers as well.
Lovely. And we'll now go on to the pre-prepared questions. So first off, when is the best time to apply and how competitive is the process? I'll start off with Kerrie first.
So all of our graduate and placement roles, we tend to work on like an annual pattern. So all of our graduate and placement roles tend to open in September, and we normally keep them open for quite a while, for a couple of months. But I would always say if there is a role that you're interested in, to try and apply as soon as possible. And then for our apprenticeships, we always open those every February as part of National Apprenticeship Week. But again, I would always say try and make sure if you see a role that you're interested in, try and do that application as soon as you can.
So I'll jump in. For me, when I was applying, the best time for me was between September and March. That was generally when all the apprenticeships came out. I was really keen to get apprenticeships. I was checking every single day, because they all come out every single day. And it can be a very competitive process. There are a lot of people going for one singular role, and it can be very daunting, but I would never let that put you off. All it takes is one to get that. So definitely be open to applying to as many different types of roles as possible. So you might want to be a project manager, but be open to different types of roles within that area, because just because you're starting in one role doesn't mean that that's not going to open a door to something else.
So, Kerrie, I'd love to pick your brain as an employer. What do you think makes a candidate stand out?
I think for us, obviously, we would have sort of certain sort of set requirements that we would sort of look for our opportunities. But I think in terms of kind of personality, it's people that are kind of really passionate, really engaged, people that kind of show that they're kind of interested in both the business and the opportunity as well. So it's more about kind of having that drive and that passion is sort of what we look for with kind of candidates, and which will make you stand out as well. If we can see that you've got sort of that real enthusiasm when you come in for an interview or an assessment centre, it will definitely make you sort of stand out as someone that's super keen for the role.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I definitely think it's all about personality as well and seeing how you fit well with the apprenticeship program. What about for you, Laura? What do you think?
Yeah, to echo what Kerrie's just said there, the speaking to our employers that we work with, the personality and the soft skills that somebody can bring. So the communications, the behaviours are really key. So showing that employer that you've done your research, that you are passionate and aware of what it is you're applying for, I think is crucial. And if it's a skill that you're hoping to bring to that role that you're already living and breathing in your own personal life, to show that as well, and show the personality that you would be bringing to that organisation, and allowing them maybe to picture where you would fit within their team.
No, that's lovely advice, Laura. Moving on to kind of the student perspective, I know, Emilia, you've gone through like the apprenticeship process yourself. Where do you think students should be looking for apprenticeship opportunities?
So I think there's obviously the obvious sites like UCAS, LinkedIn, Indeed. There's also my first job, which I actually got my current job from there. But what I would really recommend is also going on to, it's a big process, but going on to individual company websites, because I actually found that only about 50% of jobs were actually like fully advertised, and it was mainly on their early careers pages on their website that actually all the jobs were listed. So it's definitely a process and there's a lot of commitment. But I just went on the internet, Googled, and said like, give me a big list of companies that possibly would do an early career scheme. And I went A to Z through that on every single company. And yeah, that's what worked for me.
Yeah, just to jump in on that, I think with a lot of company websites, you can also set it up for notifications as well when things go live, or they'll have a kind of register your interest form that you can fill out as well, so they can let you know as soon as any kind of opportunities do open up as well.
And the government website as well, just to add another one on there, just to make sure that you're checking the government website for any opportunities that might be advertised on there as well.
Just to kind of continue on that, I guess for Laura, what would you say candidates can expect from the recruitment process? Oh,
Um,
sorry.
it's it's okay. So for us personally, there's at Apprentify, it's quite hands-on. In all honesty, it's getting to know our candidates one to one with how they may fit um with an employer. So there's a skill scan that we do to really get to know all of our learners as individuals, to see what they've covered in the past and where we've got those gaps of knowledge that we could look to fill with a personalised learning plan for all of our learners. So that's something from a student's perspective that we do during the enrolment phase for an apprenticeship.
And what about you, Kerrie, from an employer's perspective? What do you think candidates can expect from the whole process?
Yeah, so all of our open vacancies, it would be an online application. For our apprenticeships, it would then be a case that you would be invited, if successful, to an assessment centre, which would be in person. For our graduate and placement roles, is a little bit more involved. It tends to be 4 stage, where there is a automated interview and also an online test that's involved as well. And then also kind of an in-person assessment centre at the end as well. We did do kind of virtual assessment centres for a while, but we do love to kind of actually sort of get to meet candidates in person and be able to show them around the sites and locations and things. So kind of being able to sort of be able to kind of get them to introduce them to the wider business as well is, I think, a great opportunity. And yeah, so that's why we sort of moved to going in person. But the assessment centre itself tends to either be half day or a full day, but also gives you the chance to kind of meet some of our current cohorts as well.
From like a apprentice or applicator's like perspective, it can really definitely vary from employer to employer. Some want to learn so much about you, and some are more like a basic route. But you can generally, it will be like an online application, maybe some written questions, and then like what Kerrie said, some online tests. For me, it was then followed by some video interviews, which where it's a bit odd. You kind of like talk to a screen and it records you, which can be quite off-putting, but once you kind of get into it, it's absolutely fine. And then sometimes you'll have an online interview and then go to the assessment centre. Again, it does vary from company to company. It can sound like a lot, and it does feel like a lot, but you know, when you really want an apprenticeship, like you don't care what you have to do to get it. And it's really designed to understand things about you, and like they just want the best fit for their job. But they're looking for potential, like an attitude, great attitude, great communication, and like curiosity, and whether you'd be a good fit for the role. For me, the biggest thing would be like preparation. So research the company, understanding the apprenticeship, know why you want that specific role, and have examples ready from school, college, part-time work, volunteering, hobbies and stuff. So you don't need loads of corporate experience or any corporate experience, but you just need to explain your experiences well.
I think just to follow on from what Kerrie and Emilia have both said there as well, is it may sound quite cheesy, but the assessment centres are very much for the employer and the students. I'm sure you'd both echo that. It's
Yeah.
for them to understand exactly what an apprenticeship is and what they could come to expect from it. And there are some of the tasks, like Emilia mentioned, they might be written tests or like interview style, but also for us to help fill those knowledge gaps from our end with, well, what is an apprenticeship? What is an endpoint assessment? And what could you come to expect from it if it's something that you decide is the right fit for you as well from a student's point of view?
Yeah, agreed. And I would say always make sure you ask lots of questions as well. Don't be afraid to ask questions because you need to make sure that kind of both the business and the opportunity are right for you as well. So I'd always kind of echo that it's your opportunity to make sure it's the right thing and right fit for you.
I'd also kind of like to add on that like I myself applied for hundreds and I got tens and tens of like rejections, and I don't want people to take that as like, oh, I'm not good enough or anything like that. You just weren't the right fit for that company and that wasn't your path. And you just need, like I said before, like you just need one to get through.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great experience as well, even if you don't get through. And it just like powers you on. I had an Excel spreadsheet of all mine and like what stage I got to on each. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that with any of the interview experience, it's so important to just like go and try it because, like we said, there's so many different types of stages, assessment centers, whatsoever. So being able to take that opportunity to gain that experience will kind of help you even throughout your life when you're applying for jobs as well. And it's also really good to kind of think as what Emilia was saying in terms of the perspective of, having rejections. It's definitely difficult and stuff like that, but you can think about it as a way of redirection as well and learning from that experience too. Moving on, I'd like to kind of pick your brain as well, Kerrie, talking about what apprentices can realistically expect, kind of in terms from a salary, progression, and even career opportunities.
Yeah, so we heavily invest in sort of apprenticeships within our business. So there does tend to be kind of a bit of a stereotype that kind of apprentices will come in and be sort of used to kind of make the tea and do all the legwork and all that sort of stuff. But for us, it's more about development. It's all about kind of integrating them into the business. It's about learning, being able to kind of give them as much insight as possible into kind of the role that they're interested in. We try to be competitive with our salaries, and we do review those kind of regularly along kind of the apprenticeship as well. We do different levels of apprenticeship, so depending on which level you come in at will depend on sort of the salary that you're offered. And kind of most of our apprenticeships tend to be between sort of 2 to 4 years and involve qualification. So it would be a combination of doing kind of on the job work and also kind of concentrating on your study as well.
Yeah, and that's really, really great to hear that there's so many different sort of areas how you can continue to progress and obviously getting a certification out of it as well. I'd love to kind of navigate the conversation, especially around how apprentices can navigate doing work as well as studying. So, Laura, I'd love to kind of get to know your thoughts as someone who supports apprentices on this journey. What kind of supports do apprentices get as they try to balance workload and their studies?
So the first sort of port of support with every apprentice is their employer. So the employer has welcomed that apprentice into the team and into the company and is there to support their development. So they've got their employer to start with and as that workplace mentor for the day-to-day development. But they would also have a development coach, and that's the role that I work in at the moment, is supporting those learners with their individual studies. So a learner would be in, or an apprentice would be in communication with their development coach and having regular meetings, getting to know them with how their apprenticeship is aligned with their job role and what we can be pulling from it and the lessons that we're learning. So they would have their employer and the development coach. And then also at Apprentify, we have an inclusion team as well. So if a learner does have any additional support requirements, we've got that team that we can draw on and very much become sort of part of our own individual team to help support that learner as they go through the program. So for us, they would be the sort of the three main areas of support that a learner could access. throughout the programme. And frequency would change as well as we get to know that person and their needs as well, with how often we're in contact. It's all very much about them as an individual.
And Kerrie, what would you say from your side as an employer in terms of how, I guess, apprentices can navigate struggling with workload and studies? What support is there from your side?
So we have a dedicated early careers team with early careers managers that are kind of there as a sort of impartial pastoral care. So they will work with all of our kind of early careers cohorts, so not just apprentices but graduates and placements, to check in with them, make sure that they're on track, that they're doing well, see if there's anything that they can support with. In terms of the qualification, they'll have regular meetings with the training providers as well, just to see if there's any kind of support needed there, any gaps, and sort of measure the process as well as they go along. And yeah, it's a real big support system there as well. But we also have kind of alumni within the business, and we also have kind of older cohorts as well that are kind of used to kind of buddy up with new starters. So there's that support system as well that they can go to kind of ask for any guidance or kind of any questions as well.
No, that's great. It's really good to see the different levels of support that you can get, not only from the development coach side as well as the employer side, especially as people are navigating kind of their transition from studies into work and doing both at the same time. Emilia, I'd love to dive into kind of understanding what was kind of a typical week looking like when you were balancing both work and study.
Yeah, so it can definitely vary from employer and also from like your apprenticeship provider. So I've had two apprenticeship providers. So with my first one, I had 8 hours of studying to do a week. Now with some providers, they like that to be 1 day a week. So I'll have my out of office on Friday, and do my work that day, as in my learning that day, and nothing from my work life would infiltrate that. But with my other provider, I was on a project at the same time. And for me, it was actually easier to spread those 8 hours out throughout the week. So I'd do like one hour here on this day, 1 hour there on that day. And for me, that really worked. But I found that my employer was really supportive and my project was really supportive. And at the end of the day, you are there to learn and get your qualification. So that has always, been at the forefront, and been the priority. A bit of advice for people would be to let people know what's going on in your learning life, because obviously people are just dealing with their 9 to 5 job, not also studying alongside. But it's been a really great experience for me. I'm not the most academic person when it comes to exams and stuff like that. So this has been more coursework based, and has worked out really beneficially for me. And I've learned so much more, especially applying it into my day-to-day work. But yeah.
No, that's really good to hear. And I think it's really important that there's quite a bit of flexibility in understanding how, this can be broken down. Like, as someone who used to manage an apprentice, we figured out trying to do 8 hours for one day or even doing two halves of the day, depending on what works best for the individual. But I think it's great that there's a bit of flexibility to understand how you can manage both work and studying at the same time. I'd love to delve into kind of understanding some misconceptions about apprenticeships and how we can kind of debunk them. So, what would you guys say are the biggest misconceptions about apprenticeships that you'd personally like to challenge? Anyone want to start?
I'll kick us off. Yeah. So for me, I was having to think about this question. Some of my own language caught up with me. And I think a big misconception for me is that the apprenticeships are the second best option. And collectively, I think sometimes we're guilty of using words like, I'm going to do an apprenticeship instead of university. And that the use of the word instead. And I think it's really important actually we realise that both university and apprenticeships are two really exciting and viable options for each person, seeing what's right for you. And it's that use of the word instead, and it sort of downplays the apprenticeship as being that sort of viable option and route of learning. And often we may think that the apprenticeship is quite a narrow route or a pathway to take, but actually some of the critical thinking, the creativity and the responsibility that we see coming in from our apprentices it's incredible. And I think getting over the idea that it's the second best option for me is something really powerful, and would be a real turning point for apprenticeships that I think, and I do it, I'm guilty of it, but it's that the use of that word instead. I think it's a misconception that it's the second best option, and it's not.
I completely agree with you, Laura. I think like at my when I was doing my A levels, I feel like everyone, like 98% of people went to uni, and like it was really pushed by the schools to go to uni. And for me, I initially always wanted to go to uni, and then like I just had a gut feeling. I was like, I think I need to do an apprenticeship. I think that's what's going to be right for me. And it was almost like, well, why aren't you going to uni? Why? Like, it was almost like the odd option to not do that. But for me, I feel like it's opened so many doors, and like, all my friends have gone to uni and gone on to do great things, but they've just finished uni and are now really struggling to get jobs and stuff like that, rather than like I have got this experience already done and I feel like I've already started my career. And I think it really has opened so many doors for me personally, but I really think it depends on the individual and who they are as a person, whether they're ready to go straight into that 9 to 5 job, because that is quite a lot to deal with, or whether you really want that uni experience. And that is for some people, and that's great. I think it's just what path is meant for you. But I also know some people that have gone to uni because they thought that was what they were meant to do, and then realized when they got there, this is not at all what is for me, and they've ended up leaving and then going on to do an apprenticeship, think, oh, that this is where I'm meant to be. But completely down to the individual.
Yeah, agreed. We one of the big things that we love to do is to actually go into schools to kind of highlight that it is another viable option that you can go, that different route that you can take. And kind of in the past, we've had apprentices, like you say, that have decided that kind of the degree is not for them. But then we've also had other apprentices where they have got a degree but still want to go down that route. But then we've had people that are kind of straight out of school, but we've also had people that are kind of career changers that have kind of been in other employment and just decided that they want something else or a different challenge. But also, I think another misconception is also that kind of apprenticeships are just for young people. It is an option for people that are kind of older and wanting to do something else, or kind of, like I say, a different challenge.
I completely agree with that as well. In my cohort, I had some people that were in their 30s, and then when I was doing my studying, I had people in their 50s doing it. So it's
Yeah.
definitely not categorized to one age group. And another misconception for me would be that apprentices like just do basic admin, low level work, and that has completely not been the case at all. I got thrown straight into a project and like put out my depth, but in a good way, to really help me stand on my own feet. And I have my own work stream now. Hold my own calls, and my opinion has really mattered, and people around me have really welcomed me into that, and like my younger way of thinking. It's a recurring joke at work that they want my youthfulness and that opinion to really travel into the work and have a different way of thinking. So for me, I took over comms and engagement and really changed that into a different style, and the engagement massively went up. So yeah, definitely I am not making teas for people or anything like that. That's just not been the case at all. I have my own job and do my own things.
Yeah, no, I even as someone who went through the university route, I've also kind of been on the perspective on the other side of the careers fairs where people are coming up to us to ask us about apprenticeships. And it's really interesting because you can do apprenticeships to such different levels, whether you want to do something all the way up to a degree level. I know that there's a lot of places that will offer you to pay for you qualifying for a degree whilst actually getting paid to do the job as well. So experiences vary all the time. And I've also know so many people who've kind of came out of university and decided maybe they want to change their career path, and an apprenticeship kind of offers them that opportunity to build on that skill set, which I think is really amazing as well. Emilia, I'd like to really understand kind of as from like a student perspective, what actually surprised you most when you started your apprenticeship?
I think kind of what I just kind of said was people being really interested in what I have to say and stuff like that. Because I kind of expect to just kind of sit there and listen. But then people started asking me questions, what do you think about this? And what kind of, yeah. And that really shocked me. I was like, you value my opinion. I think just what you see maybe on TV and stuff like that is apprentices like running after people and, picking up after them. But actually, I'm chasing after people in a different way, being holding them accountable, like, oh, you said you're going to do this, why haven't you done this? Or, there's this deadline, you haven't met it, why haven't you met it? So it's yeah, kind of completely flipped on what I thought it would be. And yeah, I've just got really stuck in and I don't feel like an apprentice. I feel as valued as everyone else on the team. So yeah, that's been great for me.
No, that's really lovely to hear. It's really good that you're actually getting the practical experience whilst navigating, your job as well. I think it's often like we were talking about with the misconceptions that it's not just doing like running tea runs or doing etc. and stuff like that. It's actually really getting that really real world experience whilst navigating your role. When you started your apprenticeship, or even was there like one thing that you kind of wish you knew before you actually navigated your apprenticeship journey?
Yeah, I'd wish I'd known that like I didn't have to have everything figured out before I started. I mean, I was 18, like fresh out of school. Like I knew I wanted to do something business related, but I had no idea what I wanted. And I think there's a lot of pressure on young people to understand what they want to do. And when I first started, I was like, I don't exactly know if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I just want to figure it out. And that's kind of part of being an adult is figuring out what you want to do in life. And I had some people like feel like I used to be a zoologist and now I'm a project manager. So like it really does change. But when you're applying, it can feel like you need to know your whole career plan, have the perfect answer for everything. But like apprenticeships are about learning what you're good at. And I've learned so much about myself and like really understood what I like, what I don't like, and like different parts of things. So I really don't like financial stuff at work. That does not excite me. But I really love dealing with people and I really love things like a planner. That really excites me, and setting tasks for people. So yeah, I'd also wish I'd known that asking questions is a strength and not a weakness. So we have common phrase at work is that like no question is a silly question. You're there to learn, and so nobody expects you to know everything straight away. We have directors asking all kinds of questions, because I think people would much prefer you be honest and say I don't understand that, because then that's only going to develop you as a person and you in your role. So yeah, it's just important to be open, willing to learn, and being honest about where you are. And I think that attitude can take you really far.
Just to follow on from that as well, Amelia, I went down the university route and I learned a lot about myself during that time as well. And yes, I thoroughly enjoyed the subject that I read at university, but I picked it very young and I learned what I really wanted from a career towards the end of that as well. So I think I'd have really loved to have known then that an apprenticeship was an option for me at that stage as well, having known who I was at a different sort of level, and really having got to know myself as a woman and as a learner, um, as I'd progressed through that sort of university. Um, the years of many, they were fun, don't get me wrong. I had a wonderful time, great experience, and some life skills. Um, but I didn't know really at the time that apprenticeships could have been the route that helped me redirect my career at that stage.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of pressure from society to kind of know what you want to do, but the reality is that through the process of adulthood in general, it's all about learning and understanding what you want from yourself. Similarly to Laura, I also went to university, kind of having an idea of what I wanted, but obviously there's the risk of university debt at the end of it and not 100% knowing whether that route is for you. And I think that's what's great about apprenticeship because it offers you the opportunity to study and also earn while you learn. And through that process, like as Amelia said, like you actually get the opportunity to understand exactly what you like about your role and what you don't like about your role as well. Um, I guess just before we go into kind of the live Q&A, I just want to ask one more question from you guys. So what would you say is one piece of advice you'd personally give to someone who's still on the fence around apprenticeships?
I would say definitely consider it, do your research, have a look at different companies, the different apprenticeships that they do, um, and kind of have a look to sort of see. You may not realize how many apprenticeships are out there. It might be that something that you are interested in does kind of relate to the apprenticeships that are open and available. So yeah, I'll definitely consider it as a viable kind of route for kind of career progression for sure.
Absolutely. I'd say be curious. If you're on the fence, fuel that curiosity, ask those questions, and really find out, is this for me? And am I for you as well? Is this a route that I think is going to suit me as an individual? But yeah, be curious and ask those questions. Because like you said, Kerrie, there might be an apprenticeship out there that you didn't even know sort of in your wildest dreams existed. But actually, there are people earning salaries and learning on the job, fueling that passion that they've got outside of work, and learning more about it sort of day to day, as well. So yeah, be curious would be my tip if you're still on the fence, and ask those questions.
No, that's like great advice. I think if there's anything I've learned from apprenticeships is how many sectors that it covers itself. So if you're thinking about, maybe there's a particular subject that you're interested in, but you're not too sure whether you're navigating going to uni or doing an apprenticeship whatsoever, I think it's so important to do that research, be curious, as Laura has said,
Yeah,
go and look around and see what's available out there before making a decision, because you shouldn't be putting too much pressure on yourself to know exactly what you want, but just figuring out what
yeah,
your options are is a great
yeah.
opportunity.
So I've worked in apprenticeships now for just over 10 years, I think it is. And I've worked for different providers where we've had everything from your traditional trades, electrical, motor vehicle, but we've had equestrian. And now in the provider that I'm in, I work in content creation and digital marketing, and we've got AI. The range is it's vast, and there's so many options out there. So that curiosity is really important, I think, with getting to know what the options would be, um, see if it's a fit.
Oh, I think that's Amelia that's back. Oh, never mind. Anyways, guys, so I can see that there's lots of different questions now for the live Q&A. Thank you so much for sharing your questions so far, and obviously feel free to share any more as you go along. I guess as a first question, what would you say are your top tips for interviews and group tasks?
Ooh, for group tasks, it is a fine line and it is a difficult one because you want to kind of see to be getting involved, but on the other hand, you don't want to be seen to be taking over and dominating as well. So it is kind of quite a tricky line, but it's more about kind of seeing how kind of you're collaborating, how you're working as sort of part of a team, whether you're bringing other people into the conversation as well, I'd say, as part of the kind of the group exercise. Um, and kind of in terms of kind of interviews and things, top tips I would say would be definitely do your research prior to the day. Make sure that you feel prepared because that will kind of help with your confidence as well when you come to the day. And like we've already mentioned before, just make sure you ask lots and lots of questions on the day as well.
Yeah, to echo that, it's the research ahead, ahead of any interview, and to let the interviewer know that you're aware of what that role is that you've applied for, and what skills that they're looking for. So doing your research into the company and into what that role might entail as well. So just come in prepared, to every any interview that you go to.
Yeah, and just to reiterate for Amelia's sake, we just got conversing about what your top tips are for interviews and group tasks. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Sorry about that, by the way. Kept kicking me out. I kept joining and then it wouldn't let me join again. My top tip is be yourself. That is gonna set you apart from like absolutely anything. I think like because I ended up getting 4 jobs from my interviews, and like the feedback that I got afterwards was that you were completely yourself, and it wasn't like you were pretending to be someone that you weren't. And yeah, like they employers don't want someone that's robotic, and also you're not going to be able to uphold something that you've pretended to be that you're not. These people are going to be working with you. They want someone that they're able to engage with and, be yourself around. And that is, everyone has all kinds of experience, all kinds of qualifications, but that you of yourself is what sets you apart from everything else. In terms of like the assessment centres and group tasks, generally have like some kind of scenario that you have to figure out with other people. And it's not about being the loudest person in the room or having the most ideas. I think it's about including other people and helping up, saying something like, oh, I haven't heard, you haven't said anything in a while. Have you got anything to add? Or that's a great idea. Just being that kind of a leader, but not being the most outspoken person in the room. Yeah, really trying to get everyone heard and guiding the group and being like, oh, we've only got 5 minutes left, or who wants to take this task? And yeah, really leading in a way that's not overpowering, I think would be my top tips.
No, that's some great tips, guys. Thanks for sharing. I know we actually kind of talked about this earlier, but is there any age limit to apprenticeships? I know we've got quite a few age ranges at the moment.
For us, we don't have upper age limits at all. We do have, just because some of our roles involve working kind of factory based, we do have some lower age limits, which can either be sort of 16 or 18. But in terms of kind of upper age, we don't have any sort of upper age limits at all.
And I know that there's quite a few international students here who are also quite interested. So, would you say that international students are eligible to apply for apprenticeships?
Yeah, from our perspective, we all kind of consider kind of all applications and stuff. And we'll also kind of, for all of our early careers roles, we will consider kind of international students as well. As long as they kind of meet all of sort of the requirements for the apprenticeship, it's definitely, yeah, we'll absolutely consider it on a case by case basis.
You're on. So
Okay, that's me back. Apologies. So, obviously, there's a lot of conversations as well that, as we kind of navigate the post-university route, or I guess post-education route, there's a lot of conversations around apprenticeships as well as grad schemes. But would you guys be able to tell us kind of the main differences between both of them for a graduate?
Yeah, so kind of for us, the difference would be that obviously for a graduate program, you would need to have completed a degree, or we do actually have kind of an internal route that if you have sort of completed an apprenticeship with us, there is sometimes the option to then move on to the grad program once you've completed your apprenticeship. The graduate program with us tends to be more rotational around the business. So it might be that you will spend kind of a year in different departments and in different sites and then rotate round again. And it generally tends to be kind of a longer program as well. And the idea for our grad programs is that you will then kind of, it's more of a future leadership thing, where you will then kind of also do kind of leadership training and everything as part of kind of the program. Whereas with the apprenticeships, you do tend to stay within sort of the one kind of location, but you kind of rotate round within that particular site. And then you're obviously doing the qualification as part of that as well. But with some of our graduate programs like finance, you do have the option to do a qualification as well. So they can be quite similar.
I think it definitely depends on the company, I think. So I know like I think day to day generally looks quite similar from some grad people that I've spoken to. Yeah, I think it definitely depends on the company, because I know some apprenticeships that I applied for, their rotation was like all company wide and you go into different departments and stuff like that. So I think it definitely depends on where you're applying to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so, oh,
sorry,
sorry,
it was
Laura,
just
go
to follow
ahead.
on from what Emilia said, that we do have some employers where our apprentices do rotate within the business to get that exposure to the different departments. So yeah, we see that on our end, which not with all, but with some of our employers that we support, we do have some rotation within the business to get our learners the exposure across the wider business.
That's really good. And I know that both options, so grad schemes as well as like apprenticeships, do offer a salary, but with an apprenticeship, you are also working towards a qualification through that process as well. Um, I guess for those who are actually interested in apprenticeships, when should you start actually looking for an apprenticeship? I've had a few people asking, is it near the end of summer or should you start right away from like year 12? When is the best time?
I would say September's the best time. And if you're in year 12 and you're not planning on applying that year, completely worth having a look that year, listing the employers and the jobs that you're interested in, because it generally, at the big firms at least, I know they put out the same apprenticeships each year or around about the same apprenticeships. So it's really great to have an idea of which companies you'd like to apply for, but apply to as many as you can. But yeah, September time to March time. In summer, I personally haven't seen any come out because I help people apply for roles, but I haven't seen any come out recently. So yeah, September's generally the time.
And then I'd add on that it might be worth having a nosy as well, and that looking that we do have, and then this is just from our perspective. I know that we do have some employers who are actively recruiting at the moment as well because they have got that need in their business and the capacity to bring somebody in to their team at this point in time as well. So we may have periods throughout the year where we have, bigger intakes and more interest from employers and learners sort of in waves, but don't let that put you off and do have a look at any time really as to when people are ready to bring those learners in into their team. So yeah, have a nosy and see what's around, and to sort of going back to what you said before, fuel that curiosity of actually who is recruiting at the moment, what sort of roles are there. But yeah, there are definite waves where we have bigger cohorts that are looking at the same time, but we do have employers sort of year round that will recruit at different stages.
I'd also say don't be afraid to email companies. I know some people that have emailed some smaller businesses and they've actually made an apprenticeship for that person by them reaching out. So even if there isn't an opportunity, don't hesitate to contact them.
Yeah, and definitely use LinkedIn for connecting with people. I would definitely spend time researching to find out kind of which companies that you particularly would want to target as well, and have a look to sort of see if they're going to be attending kind of any upcoming kind of career fairs or anything like that. So you could actually kind of go along and sort of have a chat with them as well.
Absolutely. I think LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. I think if you've got an up-to-date profile where you show your personality, your experience to date as well, it can be used as a really great tool to make the connections with any potential employers, to follow companies that you've got an interest in, to join groups that potentially you could network with, and to make those connections, but to really market yourself as well. And there may be people on this call that have not yet used LinkedIn, but it has a handy little tool where you can see, depending on your settings, who's looked at your profile. So sometimes it could be that subtle little nod to an employer that I am here, I am interested, and I'm trying my best to do my research into what it is that I'm applying for. So yeah, I think during the search for an apprenticeship or employment, I think LinkedIn is a really powerful and useful tool that you could be drawing on, and adding a banner, a profile picture, and show them that there's a person here behind this application.
I love LinkedIn. I think it's great. It's great for a nosy as well. So you can look at your profile, and yeah, following companies, and they can also see when they go on your page, like who you're following, who you're interested in. Recruiters are actively looking on people. Like I often get requests from recruiters all the time, so it's definitely a great place to be and have your profile on.
Yeah, I agree that personal brand is so important, whether it's as an apprentice or if as someone who's kind of looking for your next role. I think especially like navigating like the different groups, navigating the hashtags and following them, or even just like connecting with individuals who you kind of aspire to be in the industry and whatnot, I think is a great way to kind of just start building your network as well. Just start by liking some posts,
Mm.
commenting. It's not as intimidating as people make it out to be. Like we all kind of start somewhere. And I think also just not being afraid to share some posts as well. I think we've talked a bit earlier as well, just being like it's okay to share a bit about yourself because it also allows the company to get an idea of what you are like as a person as well from just scrolling your LinkedIn. So, um, do you guys have any specific advice for each of like the different stages of the application process? So this could be more like the online assessments or even the interview aspect of it.
I'd say with your CV, it's great to tailor it to the individual, what's it called, like job spec, and the advertisement that they put out. Generally, like there are tens of thousands of people applying to certain roles, and like there are AI screenings and stuff like that. So it's really important to make sure that you are putting in those words that they are looking for. And generally that is what is on the job spec. That's what I found anyway. And yeah, even things like the video interviews that I did where they film it, I got some of my feedback back immediately on an email. So obviously I knew that a person hadn't reviewed that. But it gave me feedback and stuff like that. But don't be off put by that. And like obviously you are going against a computer, not a person in some of those aspects. Sometimes it is real people behind that, and obviously they're going to be looking for similar things which the AI is also looking for. So, might get rejection from something, but don't be put off by that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree in terms of kind of CV, definitely make sure that you kind of tailor it to kind of make it stand out. And anything that you've done in your kind of past that relates to the role, add that in, and that can be within kind of education, work experience, or even over the stuff that you've done in kind of your spare time as well. In terms of kind of the online testing and sort of any automated video interviews or anything, just make sure that you set aside enough time to be able to do it as well. Don't rush it. Don't feel that you have to kind of do it and get it out of the way. Take your time with it and make sure that you kind of do the best kind of that you can on it rather than sort of just rushing it to get it done, which I know can be difficult when you've got lots of other things going on. Yeah.
And just to follow on from that, where you mentioned, Kerrie, about if it doesn't on your CV, it doesn't necessarily have to be just work related. I'd really echo that actually, if there's something that you're passionate about and you're involved in outside of work that or you have a feeling is going to support you in that job role or that application, shout about it on your CV to that employer. Like Emilia said, really personalize that CV for that application. And I think I've said a few times, but really letting that potential employer know that you're actively applying to them and you would like to work as part of their team. I think that's really important because quite often people have got passion projects that they're involved in outside of work, or like from my perspective, we have learners on program that are actively using social media, creating great content. And we want to know about that, even if that's something you're doing personally. Tell us, because they are skills that we could be drawing on for some of our employers that we're supporting. So yeah, knowing sort of the passion projects that people are involved in, I think is wonderful to sort of really personalize on your CV.
Also, like in your interviews, the employers that I've always been asked, like, what are your interests? What hobbies do you do? What do you like to do outside of work? They're really interested in you as a person and like what kind of stuff you like to do. But in my interviews, I kind of treated it obviously professionally, treated it more like a conversation, because it's like someone getting to know you. It's a bit like a date, but in that kind of way, they're trying to get to know you, answering questions, and like always ask them questions. And like some of my interviews finished, and then I went on to talking 45 minutes afterwards, just chatting. So like they want to know so much about you just as much as they want you to know about them. So yeah, I think that's important.
I guess I'd like to ask, I know it's quite a big question in itself, but I guess after an apprenticeship, will you be secured a role, or is there anything that you can do to kind of improve your chances to secure a role at your company?
Yeah, so for us, we kind of always kind of have that main intention that it will then go into kind of a permanent role once you finish the apprenticeship. Within kind of like the last year to 6 months, we will then kind of work with apprentices to kind of find out what elements of it they have enjoyed, which areas they particularly want to go into, which teams they enjoyed working with, to kind of find out kind of where they see themselves being once they've come off kind of the apprenticeship. But yeah, for us, it's definitely something that we would expect them to then go into permanent position once they've completed.
Again, so the a fixed so for us, employment is not always guaranteed. Some of our learners are on fixed term contracts that may end at the end of the apprenticeship period. However, employers have invested that time and the energy into building those skills. So the intent is there to keep hold of that talent, grow with it, and then potentially have that learner then move on to support a new learner that may come into the business. So it's not guaranteed from our perspective. There may be fixed term contracts, but our employers typically want to see that talent that they've helped grow stay with the business. And things, Sophia, I think you asked about what can be done to try and secure that. Our learners are often involved in regular one-to-ones, creating personal development plans, setting future targets, and knowing what they're working towards. And having those active conversations is something that as coaches we encourage and try and trigger with our employers as well to make sure that there's career progression in our site, and we know where all of our learners are heading, and they've got the confidence as well to know what is at the end of this apprenticeship.
I think it really depends on the employer, because I know I was on a fixed term contract, but then I also know some employers, they kind of require apprentices to stay on for a certain amount of time. So I know some people have to stay on for like 4 years after their apprenticeship is finished. For me, like obviously companies generally want you to stay on afterwards. My team changed directorates, so the budget completely switched during my apprenticeship, so they weren't able to keep me on afterwards. So I got that conversation going, like, okay, well, if we can't have it a position in this team, where else in the company can I find something else? So I was putting feelers out everywhere, and that's where creating a network during your time in your apprenticeship is really important. So thankfully, I had a lot of people rooting for me, and I found a job somewhere else in the company, and that has worked out for me really well. And I'll be staying on the same project, just in a different team, in a different directorate.
No, that's really great to hear. I think especially in this current economy and the job market at the moment, it can be quite an daunting experience. But to know that there's support not only from the network that you've built during your time, during your apprenticeship, or even from your employers, or even from your development coach, as Laura has said, just knowing how you can prepare yourself for those next stages. It's great to hear that there is opportunities to kind of continue your path onwards. We've got about two questions left just to round off this session. So, I guess as someone who might be a bit more on the introverted side, what do you think is some advice you would say to kind of help them stand out in an interview?
So I think, like has been mentioned before, it's not necessarily about being kind of the loudest person in the room. I think it's just more about kind of as much as you can try and get your kind of motivation and your engagement across throughout kind of the time that you're with the employer. You would normally have an opportunity to kind of have that one-on-one time. So it's kind of utilizing that to kind of get it across that it is something that you are passionate about and that you want to get into, and just try as much as you can sort of demonstrate why you want the role.
I think this was something Emilia touched on earlier as well, is being really meaningful with the communications that you do have. It's just being really meaningful with them. Like Kerrie just mentioned, it's not necessarily about being the loudest person in the room. It's just making sure that when you are involved, that there's real clarity in the message that you're putting across, or the questions that you're asking, and you're sharing your knowledge as well. And if it's a sort of a gentler means of communication, fine, but just with real meaning to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for myself, it might not seem like it, but I used to be a really introverted, shy person with like no confidence whatsoever. And obviously that just grows as you get older with experience and stuff like that. But like within it, like I stutter in my interviews, like so anxious before joining, and that is completely normal. And the employers are absolutely going to expect that people are going to be really nervous and are going to stumble and stutter, and like don't let that throw you off. Like just continue on. Sorry, like it is completely normal to feel like that, and I really sympathize with how daunting things like that are. And it's like a massive credit to you for putting yourself in that situation, and it's only ever going to be more experience the next time you're going to feel more confident. By the time I'd done my last interview, I was like, this is just extra practice, this is a breeze. So it just comes with practice. But my first interview I ever had, I was honestly thought I was going to throw up beforehand. I was that nervous, but it just comes with practice and time, and you will start to come out of the shell as you discover who you are as a person, and like what how you work in an interview and stuff like that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that's the thing. We always find that the interview process is so daunting, but in reality, it's just two human beings having a conversation or a couple, depending on how the interview structure is. And I think the main thing is being able to showcase your personality. Like we've reiterated so many times, it's not about being the loudest person in the room, but it's just being able to showcase your personality and how you can fit in with the company. I think with any company, we get people who are more introverted, people who are more extroverted, and that in itself is what builds a company to be what it is to be.
Yeah, and I think
Well,
most teams and departments need that range of personalities as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's what makes the team fun as well. Sometimes you get those different aspects of people's personalities that kind of bring to life what the team is all about. So I wouldn't put too much pressure being slightly more introverted in an interview. Just showcase what you've got and represent yourself authentically.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and there are online tools and kind of coping strategies and stuff that you can find. So definitely kind of have a look into those if you think that they might help as well.
I guess just to round up for our last question, what advice would you give to someone who isn't so sure about their interests or career direction when choosing an apprenticeship?
I'd say like look into what you like. Like if you like doing like artsy things, if you're creative, like maybe marketing would be a great thing for you, because then you can really be creative about different things. I mean, marketing these days have got incredible ideas and all kinds of things that are really out of the box. If you like things that are like really organized and stuff like that, maybe something like a PA role or like project management. I think really just like figuring out what you like, and it doesn't have to be in terms of a corporate world. It's just what you like in day-to-day things or habits that you have, and where you can really put that to good use. There are loads of tools online, like personality finders, where it like figures out, I think it's Myers-Briggs, they like figure, yeah, you answer loads of questions about yourself, and then it kind of tells you what job you might be good at. And I just use tools like that, and hopefully just go with one thing, and hopefully like it works out. And if not, you learn that that isn't the role for you, and it's just going to bring you on to your next path of what is a better suited fit for you.
I think to pick up on a word you use there, Amelia, I think habits. It's if we don't feel like we've got a real sort of dedicated interest, then actually what are our like getting to know what our habits are, really looking at ourselves and being like, okay, well, do I in my downtime, do I find myself using social media quite a lot? Do I get a lot of enjoyment out of creating content on social media? Do I enjoy technology? Am I outside in the garden in my downtime? What are my habits, and is there potentially a passion there that I could pull on, or a salary to be earned by learning some additional skills from that habit that I've got?
Yeah, for example, my brother, he was obsessed with Lego his whole life. Like he has been like just loved it his whole life. So he's now gone into construction management. That's what he wants to do, and just like building on something that has always been something fun for him, and then finding a career, something he can do with that. Obviously it's not the same as building Lego, but it's the same kind of the way your brain works.
Yeah, agreed. I think just think about what your genuine interests are, because you need to enjoy what you're doing, and what you're going to be kind of going into, but also don't put too much pressure on it as well. Just because you've chosen a particular function or a particular path, yes, you have to be committed to it for the time of the program or the apprenticeship, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be kind of your route forever. There's lateral moves you can do. You can always look to kind of change later down the line as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for your lovely answers. It's really great to hear all this insightful knowledge that you have. And I'd like to obviously thank our attendees for joining today's webinar. We hope you found it useful. Don't forget that you can register with Prospects for free for more careers advice, opportunities, podcasts, and more. And there's even a job match quiz for those who are looking to figure out what they want to do. But if you've enjoyed today's session, keep an eye out for any future webinars that we are hosting. The session has been recorded, so you will receive an on-demand link to catch up later or to share with others as well. But I hope that you guys take care, especially in this hot weather. Stay hydrated and under a fan where possible. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of the day as well.